Hello everyone, and welcome to knitting adventure number 5, and I'm super excited to show 2 finished projects that, well, both of them actually took quite some time. Also took me quite some time to sort of tidy up the craft room. Wasn't July fabulous with Christmas extravaganza? I had so many projects all over the craft room that every time I came in here, I had to sort of make a space for myself to get in, find a place to sit and work on a project. Most of that has been cleared away, and Christmas extravaganza somehow, even though it was exceptionally busy July, it seemed to slow down the month a little bit. And here we are already, almost the first week of August has gone by. Thank you so much if you're joining me for my knit adventures. I'm Geraldine and this is G Crochet Off the Hook, with a few extra crafting adventures as well, like taking on learning how to knit. Now I am knitting washcloths, and that is with Jana Kay from Leave It to Stitches. She has just invited us to the next washcloth that we need to cast on, which I have done because I do that completely with her for the first few instructions that we need to have. And once I've got that done, I'll go away and actually complete the washcloth. And I have done that, so I'm going to just share the beginning of this washcloth, which I believe is the sugar cube. And I have successfully completed one whole repeat. 1, 2. I have completed 2 repeats so far, and this is what it's looking like. It's the sugar cube washcloth, and I'll be excited to show you this when it has been completed. But if you head on over to Leave It to Stitches and you have a look at the washcloth workshops, because we're working these washcloths with Jana Kay, you'd be able to get one cast on as well. I'm also holding 2 strands together, and I do have my safety line in. It's not showing up, but I have put a contrasting yarn of lilac in here. Usually that actually keeps me on track to really paying attention as I go along. And the second tip that I'm going to show you, because I didn't know until Nikki dropped me a comment and she let me know that those row counters that I found, you can actually slide it onto your hook or onto your yarn, and it's attached to the project. And then as you move up with your rows, you can actually move your row counter along with the project. Now there's another finished project I'm going to show you very shortly where I did use that tip, which I'm so grateful for. Thank you so much, Nikki. And that project I was able to complete, and it had quite a few number of rows in it. What do I do when I saw this new washcloth that we could cast on? I was so excited. Even though I knew I wanted to use the row counter, I forgot to put it on. So with my tail that I started with, I've just looped that tail around to the row counter, and I still don't have to pick it up off my lap or find it on the chair because it's rolled off my lap. That's how I was using it previously. It is attached, and I can still just easily move my rows as I go along. So this is a project I'll be able to hopefully share with you next week or the week after that, depending how long it takes me. but that is the new washcloth cast on. So on to my 2 finished knitting projects. I'm so excited because the very first one, my youngest daughter actually requested. Now, during the course of July, we had 67 minutes for Nelson Mandela Day, and we had gathered up a whole lot of, things that we had been keeping aside, and a lot of them were some squares that I had, largish squares, some scarves, a few odd beanies. We'd sort of gone through our cupboards and taken out things that were either not fitting or were no longer needed, and donating them to the SPCA. One of those items happened to be a scarf that I had for many, many years. It is bright pink, but it's exceptionally long. It was a bought scarf from, as I say, quite a few years ago. And my daughter said, "Oh my gosh, are you passing this along?" And I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "But I love it." But pink is also not her color, and I don't really wear such bright colors of recent. So I had a look at the scarf. I don't have it here with me, and I didn't even think to take a photograph. But it was a bought scarf, but I could definitely see the stitches were not crochet. It was a knit stitch. So I sort of had a look on YouTube. What does that stitch remind me of? And it looked very close to the fisherman's knit stitch. And I had done a washcloth with Jana Kay for that stitch. So I came across a tutorial for a fisherman knit scarf, and I'll leave that tutorial in the description. And it took me over 2 weeks, but it has been getting just as much wear and much more already. So I'm really chuffed that I stuck with it and I did get it made. So I'm not at the stage where I'm reading patterns or anything, so I need the instructions and I need the description and why, and if I can follow the stitches. So I needed to know more or less how much to cast on, that we were going to work a border, so washcloths came in handy because I have been doing the borders like Jana Kay shows us. And guys, this is the scarf. It is super, super long. And yes, it did take me, I'm sure it was over 2 weeks to make. I added on a little fringe. She requested the fringe, so I have added that on. The fisherman's stitch, once I got into it, I was able to, I still needed to concentrate, and I'm not saying that this is perfect by any means. There's a few odd spots, even as they happened and I pointed them out. My daughter said, "Mommy, you can't even see that there's anything wrong with it." So 1 or 2 of the stitches may have been a bit too loose, or I stabbed slightly different to where I was supposed to. But there we go. This very long scarf that is totally loved. I had to ask her to leave it with me so that I could just show you all this finished project. I am so chuffed that I stuck with it. Now, when I started this particular, I can't remember where it is. Oh, here they are. When I looked at this tutorial, it did say that it required 8mm knitting needles, which I did not have. And the yarn that I used, I want to share with you too, is Saprotex. It's an owl yarn. It's called Soft Chunky, and the color we used for this particular scarf is called Mink. Now, this particular skein of yarn, I used 2 of them. This was what was left of the second one. Has 160 meters, 175 yards on it for a 200 gram. And as I say, I used 1, and this was what I had left of the second one. It does recommend here 5.5 or 6.5 millimeter knitting needles. And I do have a 6 and I have a 5. But the tutorial that I watched actually called for an 8. So I found these 2 little wooden sticks. Now they are not knitting needles. These are sticks that you use with a, did I not bring it with me? It's like a curtain tie back. There's a round circle that you place in front of the curtain, and this slips through it like that, and it keeps your curtain tied back. Now I actually took these and I had a look with my little gadget that you get where you can see, you know, you stick it in and you can see, does that fit by 6mm? No. 7? No. 8? Yes, it fitted with the 8mm. So I knew these were basically 8mm. And I actually took, they were completely orange. I took some green nail polish and I put some nail polish on the tips. And then I took my decoupage and I decoupaged the ends, and they came out nice and super shiny. And I actually started this scarf with this yarn with these little wooden sticks that are actually supposed to be used as curtain tiebacks. Now I did get quite a fair way with this. I can't remember, but there was at least, say, that much. And I eventually said, no, this is working, but what I found myself doing after about that section that I had done, it was losing that sort of slick at the end. And then I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, am I going to have to keep decoupaging these tips to make it sail the way it was when I initially started using them? So I nipped down to the clothing shop here by us and looked for some knitting needles. And I bought myself, these are called children's knitting needles, 8mm, 20 centimeters in length. And I carried on knitting with these needles. And they are acrylic. It's also a Saprotex Owl Yarns product. And they did work fine. But while I was there, I also picked up, because I have some more of this yarn, which I'm going to just briefly show you in just a sec. I also picked up bamboo, 8mm circular knitting pin, and this is an 80 centimeter little doodad in the middle. And I transferred from these to this, and that's what I completed this scarf on. And I really enjoyed using these bamboo knitting needles. The reason why I was there is, and I decided to try both, is because I do have a few more knitting projects that I'd like to try, including a cowl. And of this same yarn that I used to make the scarf in the Saprotex Owl range, Soft Touch. I also have 2 of this colorway called Obsidian, and I also have this white color, it's called Chiffon. And most of the other projects that I had a look at were needing an 8 centimeter knitting needle, and so now I have my choice of the circular one, which is the bamboo, and those little children's acrylic ones, both of them that I have used, and they both work well. So hopefully there will be, I don't know, maybe I'll do a project with black and white. Although I must say that this Obsidian does seem to have like a little bit of a change of color in it somewhere. So that is our first little knitting adventure, was acquiring some 8mm knitting needles of 2 different substances and using almost 2 full balls of yarn on a knitting project. And a very happy love of my life has her very long fisherman knit scarf. Now, the next project, now I had to tell you about the row counter over there, but it was just after Nikki had told me how to use this row counter correctly. I challenged myself to actually take the 4mm needles that I have, the circular one, and try and do a project with these needles. And it was with this project that I thread the yarn through here, and then I cast on, and this row counter stayed with me throughout the whole project. So what did I make? Well, I made a square, and I do believe that there are many more like these available. It is a free, they are all free knitting patterns. It says washcloth or blanket squares, and this is from Daisy and Storm, and I'll also link, hopefully, the link that goes to their website. And the pattern that I chose, the first square that I chose, not perfect, but it's perfectly wonderful for me, was to do a Yorkshire Terrier. And I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see the little terrier on here, but this was a mighty challenge to me because it is written instructions. There was no tutorial. So once again, thanks to Jana K for the washcloths that I knew what the borders were. You can see right from the beginning I made a mistake at the bottom here. I wasn't concentrating. All of these over here, I either was doing it every other stitch incorrectly, but all the other borders I was paying good attention over there. And this was almost like my mosaic crochet, how I needed to follow and read the instructions. So you did your little beginning section, and then each row would tell you what to knit, what to purl. Yes, these very classic stitches that I am learning to do. But you could create I don't know what they call it, but there's a picture in there. So every row would tell you to knit so much, then purl, and your odd rows, you are basically following a set of instructions right throughout. So you really pay attention to your even rows and your odd rows as you went. You were basically repeating the same odd row. And there we go. I have my first square knitted, and you actually have a little character inside of it. Now, not anytime super soon, and these squares are all done in one color, but I am hoping that if I feel more confident with squares like this and actually reading and following each stitch as it's given, that perhaps this is what I would use to learn to change color on. So I would use a main color and perhaps a different color for the little patterns inside. And these squares are with Daisy and Storm. So there we go. Two very different projects that I have been able to complete. And for this one, I was using Al Sapotek's Chick Double Knit in the colorway Rhino with the 4mm knitting needles. I was able to stay on track with Nikki. I really appreciate everybody's help when you see that there's something that doesn't look quite right, or you know, your guidance on this little new adventure is very much appreciated. And that's the end of the knit adventures for this week. I have my washcloth to keep me busy at the moment, and quite a few crochet projects. So as soon as I know which pattern it is that catches my eye for the next knit project, I am hoping to use some of our Soft Touch, either in the obsidian or the chiffon. And until I see you all again, don't be afraid to take on a new adventure and just have fun with it. Until I see you all again real soon, take care.